Good Wednesday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready for the Cardinals. Sunday, 1 o'clock at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Take a look at this out in Berea. Browns working inside because of the weather, and that is Deshaun Watson back practicing, throwing the football. Reports are, again, had pretty good velocity, pretty good steam on it. We'll see. We heard that against the Colts, and we saw what happened. But good news, Deshaun Watson back on the practice field, practicing, throwing the football, looking like Deshaun Watson. Kevin Stefanski talked about Watson as well as the Browns quarterback situation for the Cardinals.
As you can imagine, I always just kind of keep it day to day, and we'll focus on today. He'll be out there, and we'll see how he does.
You're not making a quarterback decision today like you did last week?
Correct. I'm not making any game day decisions today.
What about who's number one full-time practice at quarterback today? PJ or?
PJ remains the backup, yes.
If Deshaun Watson can't go, so are you saying that PJ will be the starter this week if Deshaun can't play?
Correct.
With that, let's welcome in Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus, preferred walk-on, a college football show. Max, again, we went down that road against the Colts, started and wasn't able to really continue. But again, a good sign when you see Watson throwing and looking comfortable throwing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy that you obviously invested a lot of money in, a lot of draft capital in when you traded for him as well. So it's a good sign for Browns fans going up against a relatively easy opponent in the Arizona Cardinals. Never want to say any NFL team is an easy opponent, but the Cardinals do happen to be the worst team in the league this season with a 1-7 record. So Deshaun Watson, that kind of would be a good get-right game for him, who quite honestly hasn't looked great even when he was out there anyways. And that he's looked a lot better than PJ Walker, who will be the starter if Watson can't go. But definitely good news for Browns fans, and we'll see if he can go this Sunday.
Well, the other thing that has been a little bit of a concern the last couple of weeks has been the defense, just from the standpoint of allowing teams to do some things and move the football more so than they had earlier in the season. Anthony Walker, linebacker, on if teams have figured out the Browns' defense and what he expects from the Cardinals.
Their offense, obviously, like I said, you said about the quarterback situation, very unique. But one thing they do very well is run the ball really well, right? They James Conner being a great back, he is, obviously out with injury, but the other backs run really hard as well. Again, right now, I'm pretty sure they're looking at our tape the last 2 weeks. We haven't stopped the run worth of shit, so we need to change that right now. And we got a big task ahead of us. And it goes back to us. We don't worry about what teams figuring out what we do. If we don't do it at the high level, we don't do it with the same intensity, with the same detail and focus, it's not going to look the same, right? We've seen clips where we run the same call, the team run the same play, and we punch them in the mouth, and then the team run the same. We run the same call, the team run the same play, and we give up a 40-yard run, right? So goes back to us. The focus is on us this week, and we understand that.
And Max, Browns fans have been frustrated because first several weeks the defense looked elite. Then the Colts game, and then the fourth quarter, first three drives, last drive against the Seahawks. Not what you want.
No, absolutely not. And you mentioned the defense looking elite. I mean, the first 3 weeks of the season, the defense did look elite against the Bengals and the Steelers and the Titans. And then kind of ever since that Week 4 game against the Ravens, you started to see a little more of the cracks in this defense, especially the secondary. I think there are some issues at corner. I think the Browns have a great pass rush. Jim Schwartz is still dialing it up, and it's still one of the best defenses in the league. But it has been a little concerning that you've seen what you've seen from the defense over the last 4-ish weeks of the season.
So let's take a look at this. This PFF grades on the defensive side of the ball against the Seahawks last Sunday. So Maurice Hurst, 92.4, highest graded defensive player. Then you've got Myles Garrett, 78.7, Martin Emerson, Grant Delpit, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Let's talk a little bit about Maurice Hurst. That's a guy that, Dalvin Tomlinson was brought in, and he's done well. Hurst has been a guy that just hasn't been able to stay healthy. When he's been on the field, he's been a pretty good defensive tackle, and he's been healthy this year.
Yeah, he has. And I think that's a really good sign for the Browns. Now, he hasn't, he's still in a kind of a part of a rotation right now, But I have really been impressed by Maurice Hurst, too. Coming out of Michigan, I mean, PFF had him as a top 5 prospect in the draft. Now, obviously, he went in the 5th round of that draft because of a heart issue that's kind of plagued him throughout his career. He's obviously not stayed healthy otherwise either. But, yeah, he looked elite. And this is kind of not a surprise either. I mean, against the Ravens, he had a really good grade. Against the Titans, he had a really good grade as well. The Browns are kind of hoping that Maurice Hurst can take the leap from a guy who's just a part of the rotation, which is kind of what he is right now, to a guy who could be a full-time starter, and not only that, but be a star on that defensive line alongside Myles Garrett.
When you talk about Garrett, grade not as high, but there are reasons for that. The double and triple teams are it's you're not getting wins when you're being double and triple teamed. What have you seen from Garrett?
He might be the defensive player of the year this season. I mean, he has truly been special. He's a guy that I think is kind of overdue for a defensive player of the year award. He has been special this year. And I think he's a guy that I would probably put at the top of the conversation. Now, there have been some great defensive players this year. Don't get me wrong. But right now, Myles Garrett, he has a 93.1 grade on the season that leads all defensive players in the NFL, right ahead of Dexter Lawrence, Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, TJ Watt, guys like that. So Myles Garrett has truly been special. The sack numbers maybe not be as elite as other edge defenders, but he is still getting to the quarterback at an extremely high rate. It's a good point you made. I mean, he is getting double, triple teamed almost every single play.
Last guy we'll ask about, the third guy in that list, Martin Emerson, second-year guy, third-round pick. I've been pleasantly surprised. He played at an elite level last year and just keeps playing well.
Yeah, and listen, he has had some up and down moments, I would probably say, this year, as has the other two corners for the Browns. Denzel Ward has kind of had an up and down year as well for the Browns. But Martin Emerson, obviously, you take him in the draft a couple years ago out of Mississippi State. Like you said, he's been pretty solid, and he's a guy that you didn't really expect too much of as a rookie, and he had a really good year as a rookie. Now it's been a little more up and down, but I still think this is a guy that you can count on being one of your starting corners for the foreseeable future.
All right, so let's take a look. Brian Baldinger, former offensive lineman, breaking down what Maurice Hurst did on his interception against the Seahawks.
It's 3rd and 6 up here in Seattle in the third quarter. And there's Myles Garrett out there, and Cleveland's got 6 up here on the line of scrimmage. Who's coming? Who's dropping? Okay, we see defensive tackles drop every once in a while into coverage, rob the middle of the field, like Maurice Hurst Jr., but we don't expect that, the tip ball, and then retracing it and intercepting it. That is a play you don't see very often. That was a great play by Hurst. Like, can we bump that play right to his resume reel?
And Max, when it happened, I'm like, that's a 280-pound guy who is nimble enough to deflect the ball, turn around and find the ball, and then catch the ball. I don't know if people understand how much athleticism from that big of a guy that takes.
No, I'm 100 pounds lighter than him, and I can't even do that. So Maurice Hurst is a phenomenal athlete. Like I said, he was a superstar at Michigan. He's been really good in the NFL when he can stay on the field. Now, the issue is staying on the field. But yeah, Baldy is one of the best in the business at breaking it down. I'm glad he broke down that play because that was one of the freakiest plays that we saw from any player this past weekend.
All right, before we go to break, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Disappointing day as a Browns fan at the trade deadline. You get rid of DPJ, who was a great player. He just didn't have a chance with PJ Walker back there. Who's going to throw him the ball realistically? Instead of going and getting a quarterback, Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry should both be fired. You sit on your hands at the trade deadline and you bring in guys to the practice squad instead of making a move. You don't know when Deshaun's actually going to play. So instead of getting a quarterback, you get rid of a guy for a draft pick that's 2 years from now. What a bunch of bums. Let's ride out with PJ Trash Can Walker, who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. You don't make no moves to better your team. Same old Cleveland Browns, just different front office.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. The fan base is not in the mood. Now, I will say this. DPJ's final year of his contract, the Browns they drafted Tillman. They weren't going to extend him. So they got some compensation for a guy that can play. Look, at DPJ can play in the league. Doesn't get a lot of separation. Does things that a lot of good receivers do. I mean, he's going to have a career in the NFL, but he wasn't going to. It was clear they were kind of moving on from. As far as the backup quarterback goes, reports are that the Commanders wanted a 3rd or a 4th round pick. The Browns offered a 6th. I'm fine with. I wouldn't give a 3rd or a 4th round pick. And the way I explain it, Martin Emerson was a 3rd round pick. DeJuan Jones was a 4th round pick. Would you give either one of those for Jacoby Brissett? I would not.
No, that's a good point. And listen, I mean, we talked about it a little in the pre-show. Dorian Thompson-Robinson showed a lot of good things in the preseason. And I know P.J. Walker has really struggled, but at some point, I mean, and Watson's coming back from an injury. It's not like this is a season-ending injury like Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins. So he's coming back. So it's not like you really need Jacoby Brissett. Like Watson could be back as early as this week. As for the DPJ trade, I mean, I think it was fine. I think you drafted DPJ in the 6th round. You got a 6th rounder back. And like I said, he's on an expiring contract. You drafted Cedric Tillman, and DPJ is a bigger contested catch receiver. That's exactly what Cedric Tillman is. So now you get to see what your rookie receiver can finally do, who's not really been able to play too much. So that should excite some Brown fans. So, yeah, it was an average trade for the Browns. I don't think it was, I like not trading for Brissett, and I think the trade, what they got back for DPJ is average. And I think he is in a better fit, I think, in Detroit, because that's kind of what they need in that receiving core, is a bigger contested catch guy. Whereas the Browns now, they kind of have one right behind him, Cedric Tillman. So I think it was a fine get back for the Browns.
And again, the Browns fans aren't used to having these roster dilemmas where this guy's going to get a little bit more money, probably, and you can have a cheaper version or a cheaper skill set in Cedric Tillman, who's on a rookie contract. So that's kind of the way that works. Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus and I can step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Take a little bit look at the trade deadline as well. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery, a much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments, hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500, and transform how you feel about winning.
We continue talking Browns with Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I think Kevin Stefanski's been doing a great job under the circumstances and the hand that he's been dealt. Lose Nick Chubb for the season and Deshaun Watson for who knows how long. All things considered, the people that want to fire Kevin Stefanski, which will result in a total burn down of the team pretty much, and hire a whole new staff with new philosophy, and we'd have to wait another 4 years. I just don't get it. All things considered, Kevin Stefanski's doing a great job. Thanks for taking my call. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And Max, the other thing he didn't mention, you haven't had your right tackle and again, I know Jack Conklin's getting up there in years, but he's still a really talented left tackle or right tackle. You haven't had him. So it's been a very banged up offense. And you found a way to go 2-1 with P.J. Walker.
Yeah, it's not easy. P.J. Walker is actually the lowest rated quarterback in the NFL right now, according to our metrics. So, listen, the offense is a problem, and that is Kevin Stefanski's MO. And that's why I think Jim Schwartz has been one of the top assistant coaches in the league this year, because the Browns have literally the most efficient defense in the NFL, and the Browns have the 4th least efficient offense in the NFL. Right ahead of the Patriots and the Giants and Jets. So the offense has not been good at all. The run game has been pretty solid. The offensive line is still solid, but the problem is the receivers and the quarterback they're just not on the same page right now, and they're not getting it done. So maybe if Watson comes back, it'll look a lot better. But even the receivers, I mean, Amari Cooper is getting up there in age. You can kind of tell. Elijah Moore has been kind of disappointing. We'll see what Cedric Tillman can do. But yeah, I think the offense has been really disappointing, and they're kind of just living off the defense right now and hoping that the defense can, continue to pitch these great games for them to really have a chance of winning and making the playoffs.
All right, so trade deadline goes by. This is from the Bleacher Report, trade deadline winners and losers. Yesterday was the trade deadline. Winners, Donovan People-Jones. His usage in Cleveland's offense lessened this year while serving as a starter opposite Amari Cooper. DPJ saw his targets decrease. Through 7 games, Browns quarterbacks threw it his way only 18 times. That's 5th on the team. Loser, the Browns quarterback situation. In the end, the Browns stood pat with what they currently have behind center. It's not good enough. Teams should be operating with more urgency based on how well the rest of the roster is playing. I think the thing that everybody's kind of looking past here is one of the reasons they stood pat is they feel Deshaun Watson is closer to being ready than we probably know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Deshaun Watson is a guy that, like I said before, you invest a lot. And that's why I think them standing pat and not investing in someone like Jacoby Brissett, like that guy's not going to move the needle too much. Now, he is a good insurance if Watson goes down with an injury, like he has already this season. But, I mean, you're kind of banked on Deshaun Watson right now. You're kind of pot committed to Deshaun Watson with the contract you gave him and also all the draft picks that you invested in trading for him as well. So, yeah, I think it's fine. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is a great fit in Detroit. Like I said, I think he really fills a need for them as a deep catch, contested catch kind of guy. And also he went to Michigan. He's from the Detroit area as well. So it works out geographically for him too, to be in front of a lot more friends and family. But I think it was a good trade for the Lions. And I think it made sense from the Browns perspective too.
All right, Kevin Stefanski talked. One thing that's been really good has been the Browns screen game. Kevin Stefanski talked about that.
It's always a matchup-based thing for us. You're trying to different defenses allow for different screens, if you will. But then, I beat the players and the coaches up we beat the players up on the details and the nuance of that game. And I say it all the time, it takes all 11 to get any part of your offense going. Certainly the screen game, you have to have all 11 guys, and sometimes it's the receivers running their routes at full speed. Little things like that, I think, landmarks and timing, it's got to be so precise. But it's really a game-to-game proposition.
And when you think about it, Max, the guys that have been effective in that, Strong, speed, Jerome Ford, speed, David Njoku, pretty good speed for a tight end as well. Yeah,
and that's something that you really need in that aspect. And I know, he hasn't really been used as much in the screen game, but I think Elijah Moore would be someone that really fits that mold as well. He was deadly in the screen game when he was at Ole Miss. So that's someone I think you can get more involved. And I think Elijah Moore is probably a little disappointed with how little he's been used so far this season. I think he could be used more in that offense. But, yeah, that's one of the few bright spots that you've seen on this Browns team besides the run game, even without Nick Chubb, is that the screen game has been working out pretty well for them too.
So Brian Baldinger, we talked about him a little bit earlier, former offensive lineman. Some analysis and video breakdown of Amari Cooper.
Let's watch Amari Cooper on these 2 third-down throws go about his business against Tariq Woolen. The old button hook and go. But watch him adjust to this ball and the flight of the ball. Over his left shoulder and then reversing, all right, hands, and then you go right foot, left foot, toe tap, catch. All right, first down. Then you get a reroute right here in the cover 2. Good job by Tariq to reroute, but he's coming into the hole here. He's coming to the hole, the ball's released, and now he's got to make sure that he possesses the ball, 2 hands, right foot, left foot, toe tap, first down. Man goes about his business like nobody else's business. A true pro.
And again, those are against Woolen and Witherspoon. Those are 2 really good young corners. And it was with P.J. Walker as the quarterback. Those were a couple of good throws that he made. Is Cooper underappreciated as a wide receiver, do you think?
Yeah, I think he definitely is. And I think he's still been really solid even as he gets up there in age. And let's face it, I mean, he hasn't really been helped out too much. This is a problem that he had early in his career with the Raiders, was that he just didn't have a good enough quarterback to be getting him the ball consistently. This is a problem now, quite frankly, in Cleveland, whereas Deshaun Watson, even when he's on the field, even when he's healthy, he hasn't looked that great, and he has not, been worth the investment that the Browns gave him with the draft picks and contract. And then obviously when he goes down, PJ Walker, like I mentioned before, is the lowest graded quarterback in the NFL. So he's a guy that has kind of been doing more with less almost his entire career, and that's still true even as he crosses the age of 30.
Is it because he's not one of these boisterous me kind of guy? Is that why you think he doesn't get some of the attention that some of the talented but not quite as talented and consistent receivers?
Yeah, I think that's probably some of it. I also think his numbers just aren't as good as some of the other top guys who have top quarterbacks throwing them the ball, honestly. So that's probably a factor, is that he's just, like I said, his stats are just not as good, but that doesn't mean he's not playing well. It just means the quarterback situation he has is not good enough. So the Browns definitely need to get better under center, and it all starts obviously with Deshaun Watson and him not only returning from his shoulder injury, but looking like the Deshaun Watson that we saw in Houston a few years ago, which he hasn't just looked like at all in the last 2 years. So, I think Amari Cooper definitely would benefit a lot if Deshaun Watson starts playing like he did in Houston in his last few years there.
All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Mr. Stefanski, his comments about Kareem Hunt asking for the ball more. Does this guy care about winning at all? Because you are not going to win with this guy as coach. All he cares about is the health of his players, which is okay to do, but you also need to care about winning. The only reason why we are where we are right now with a winning record is 2 words: defense. Has nothing to do with his offense. He does not have his finger on the pulse of this team, I don't believe. That's my rant for today. Take care, guys. Bye.
And so the other thing is, this is a chart of spending. So he's worried about the organization and caring about winning. The organization is spending $239 million in 2021, $276 in 2022, $286 2023. That's $802 million total. That's most in the NFL. The second most is the New York Jets, who are spending almost $70 million, almost $60 million less. They're $744. So they're spending a lot of money to try to put a winner on the field. It hasn't worked out the way they want to, but it isn't for a lack of trying.
No, it's not for a lack of trying. I mean, especially when you give out that kind of contract to Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, a ridiculous contract to give to Deshaun Watson with all the off-field stuff going on. And also, he hasn't played football in 2 years. So to give him a fully guaranteed deal, it makes him one of the highest paid players ever after everything that went on with him. Wasn't very prudent, in my opinion, and that's why they're kind of pot committed to this whole Deshaun Watson thing and see how it plays out. And they're hoping he can get back to the level of play he was showing in Houston. But yeah, I mean, they are spending a lot of money on a lot of different players, and Myles Garrett is one of the highest paid defenders, and for good reason. And he's showing why this year. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, they're not going to get to where they want to be unless number 4 drastically improves and starts looking like what he's supposed to look like for the Browns to invest this much money and this much, like I said, draft capital in him.
Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit more about that matchup with the Cardinals coming up. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, hey, this is Jared calling in from Oil City, Pennsylvania. It's my first time calling in. Love the show. Hey, I just wanted to know what you guys think of Pierre Strong. I think he's a good back, and he's really caught my eye the last few weeks. Thanks. Love the show.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Max, when I see a young guy that I really like, what I say is, like what I've seen, I want to see more of them. I think they got to find a way to get the ball in his hands. He seems to have an elite gear, and you saw it in that 41-yard screen pass on Sunday.
Yeah, he does. And he's a guy that I liked a lot coming out of college at South Dakota State. The Patriots took him in the 4th round of the draft last year, and he honestly looked really good for the Patriots. He had about 100 yards on only 10 carries, honestly. So he hasn't been as efficient this year, but he's still a guy that I still like a lot. And it's hard, when you have a backfield that, did feature Nick Chubb. Obviously, he's out for the season. Hopefully he gets better soon. But you got Nick Chubb there. You got Kareem Hunt there. You got Jerome Ford there, who's really looked good as well. I mean, that's a crowded backfield, even without Nick Chubb. So Pierre Strong is a guy that I really like, and hopefully he gets more run maybe down the stretch of the season. But it is tough, man, when you're competing with guys like Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford for touches in that backfield.
All right, so Cardinals Sunday at 1, and they traded Joshua Dobbs, so we know Dobbs is not starting. It's supposed to be Clayton Tune, may see some of Kyler Murray, but not going to start. Tell us what the Cardinals have in Clayton Tune, some of the things he does well, some of the things the Browns will see from him.
Yeah, Clayton Tune was actually, I believe he was the highest graded quarterback in college football last year while he was at Houston. He's a pretty good player, and he's a guy that I thought was underdrafted, honestly. But I still think, this is still a guy that you take in the day 3 for a reason. He's not a very toolsy guy. He's not a guy that will threaten you too much with his legs. He was a 5th-round pick. But listen, he played really well last season. He actually played really well over the last 3 seasons for Houston. So, yeah, he's a guy that I'm very curious to see how he does in his debut against, let's face it, maybe the best defense in the NFL right now the Browns have. They're the most efficient defense right now in the NFL. So pretty brutal debut to make if you're Clayton Tune, and I'm excited to see what he can do, though, in his first start.
Yeah, I would expect Jim Schwartz to disguise coverages, come after him, and he likes to say, take the seatbelt off. I think they will worry about the run on the way to Clayton Tune on Sunday.
Yeah, he probably will. And, whenever you have a rookie quarterback like that, even a rookie quarterback, a day 3 pick at quarterback. So you're probably going to dial up a lot of blitzes. I'm sure Myles Garrett is kind of licking his chops right now, looking at Clayton Tune, a rookie quarterback, and an okay-ish, not really that great Arizona offensive line. I'm sure Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, even Maurice Hurst, who we talked about earlier, they're probably getting pretty excited about, the kind of stat lines they can put up in this game.
Who for the Cardinals on the offensive side of the ball can threaten the defense? Connor's out, so their main running back won't play as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would probably, it all starts probably with Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. He's their top receiver, and he's a guy that I think will, again, the Browns corners this season have just not graded out as high as they usually do. And I don't think it's an area where the Browns need to address it in free agency or the draft, really, because I actually like what they have at corner between Newsome and Ward and Emerson, like we talked about before. They haven't played well. It's just a matter of them playing better, honestly. So Hollywood Brown could have a good game against them. DeMarcado, their running back, has kind of come on a little bit for them. So yeah, those are, it's not, again, this is the worst team in the NFL. It's kind of hard picking out the star players when it's the worst team in the league. But those are probably a couple guys I would keep an eye on.
What about areas the Browns can exploit? The clear advantage for the Browns against the Cardinals. What areas would those be?
Yeah, I would probably start off with the offensive line. And I think Myles Garrett, like I said before, is probably the best defensive player in the NFL right now. He really could have a big game against Arizona, and so could Zadarius Smith as well, who's had a pretty good year for the Browns too. So I would probably say the Browns pass rush, which has been by far the best part of this defense this year, that's probably the area where I'd say, okay, they could probably get after an Arizona offensive line that's kind of below average, honestly.
Max Chadwick from Pro Football Focus, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Max.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Max Chadwick, make sure you check him out. Pro Football Focus. Also, Preferred Walk On, a college football show on Pro Football Focus. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Tyler Johnson, straight ahead. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery. A much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments. Hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500, and transform how you feel about winning.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
The Browns front office is a joke. The coaching staff is a joke. Andrew Berry, everybody says, oh, he's a great GM. What has he done? He gave $230 million to a guy who hasn't even played 10 games in 2 years, sat on his hands, traded DPJ for a draft pick 2 years from now. What else has he done that's so great besides tie up our payroll for Deshaun Watson? You didn't do enough to get a quarterback. They just want Cleveland to fail, I guess, because you sat on your hand and literally did nothing. We have all the talent, but we have a coach who can't call plays and a GM who sits on his hands and doesn't work the phones hard enough. I'm over the Browns. I'll become a Bengals fan before I watch another Browns game.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Tyler Johnson, Faithful Dogs podcast, as well as Network 2 and 6. Well, let me see. If you think the Browns have a lot of talent, that would be Andrew Berry acquiring all that talent and the roster. And DPJ, they weren't going to sign him. The writing was on the wall that they drafted Cedric Tillman to replace him. I've said that earlier. So that's, you got something for a guy that you developed into an NFL caliber receiver. And the other thing that I would say, they didn't trade for a quarterback because they feel Deshaun Watson, the guy that you said he's spending $230 million with, is closer to playing than we think he is, which is probably evidenced by the fact that he was out there practicing. And I wouldn't have given up a 3rd or 4th round pick for Jacoby Brissett. All right, I'm off my soapbox. Welcome into the show.
Thanks, Dave. So, with Andrew Berry, he did give that contract to Watson, but let's keep in mind that was also a huge ownership decision too. So Jimmy Haslam had a lot to do with that. Actually had to sign off in order for that deal to happen. So, but when it comes to Andrew Berry, DPJ, I see people are kind of upset with, well, you traded DPJ for nothing. Like you said, he wasn't coming back. You drafted Tillman. You didn't extend DPJ. You knew DPJ was gone. And if anything, I think what you did was DPJ a favor. You sent him home to Detroit. You still got an asset for him. We might never see that draft pick because we might use it in a future trade. Andrew Berry, one thing that he is good at is when he makes a trade, he's normally getting a pick back in return of some sort. Or if he makes a deal for a player, he is getting a pick swap involved too, is something that you want to see. But also, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, this Browns team was not even in a playoff discussion when they got here originally. They have turned this roster completely around and made them a playoff contender. And they still are a playoff contender. And there were a lot of people that wanted the Browns to go out and get Jacoby Brissett. When Washington is demanding a day 2 pick for Brissett, because it sounds like they didn't even want to trade Jacoby Brissett. And the thing is, when they went out and the Browns wanted, it sounded like they inquired about Brissett, but when that's a day 2 pick, clearly they think Watson's going to be back soon. You don't give up a day 2 pick for a rental backup quarterback. It just doesn't make any sense. So you know what? Andrew Berry's done a lot, and, fans are frustrated. I get it. Deshaun Watson hasn't played a lot this year. I think we're all frustrated, but yeah, Andrew Berry's done plenty since he's been here as general manager of the Browns.
All right, this is from CBSSports.com. 5 most feared players in the NFL, and on that list, Myles Garrett. Through 7 games, he leads the league in forced fumbles, 4, ranks 3rd in sacks, 8.5, as well as 2nd in quarterback hits, 17. So the others on the list: Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Travis Kelce, and Micah Parsons. So yeah, I can see that list. I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree with that list too. Especially on the defensive side of the ball, Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett should absolutely be on that list. Myles Garrett, I think, is one of the front runners for Defensive Player of the Year. And if the Browns get to the playoffs and he continues to be healthy and produce, I think this could be the year he gets Defensive Player of the Year. But Micah Parsons obviously will fight him for that every step of the way. And then on offense, there might not be a more dominant player on the offensive side of the ball, at least right now, than Tyreek Hill. I mean, when you have over 1,000 yards receiving and we're not even halfway through the entire season, it's absolutely just remarkable to me. And it's hard to believe that Tyreek Hill is this dominant and he's no longer in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. I know that Travis Kelce took a good amount of yards and receptions from him, but still, I mean, what he's doing is incredible. A.J. Brown, what he's doing with the Eagles too. And those are 2 of the best teams in the league right there. Same with Travis Kelce being on the Chiefs. So yeah, I completely agree with that list and makes a lot of sense to me.
All right, Brian Baldinger, former NFL offensive lineman, analysis on Myles Garrett against the Seahawks.
When your name is Myles Garrett and the week before you ruined the Indianapolis Colts offense, you're going to get some attention. You're going to get chip blocked. You're going to get the slide and you're going to get a chip. You're going to get the center sliding to you and you're going to get a chip. And it's just going to be a big old mess on the 480 at rush hour in Cleveland. Like, they're going to make sure that you don't ruin the game. I mean, here's Will Dissly. He's adjusting his stance to wherever Myles is. So you're going to get the tight end, you're going to get the center, you're going to get the guard. They're all going to come over to you. But you can only keep a great man down for so long. Like, you can still chip him, and you can still block him, and when the quarterback steps up, Myles is coming. Flash Garrett's coming, the ball's out. He's trying to get it out. He's trying to rip it out of Geno Smith's hands to secure the win. Oh, he's going to get the attention again this week, too.
And, we had said earlier the PFF grade was a little lower than normal. You see why. He was being triple teamed. The win rate goes down a little bit when you got 3 guys blocking you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And what's just remarkable is even through all of that, kind of like Baldy said, you can only keep him down for so long. He's still going to end up making a play. I know he had a huge sack there in the 4th quarter. Myles Garrett has just been on another level this year. And I think a big reason, of course, why is having Zadarius Smith on the opposite side has been very impactful. But let's not forget Dalvin Tomlinson, the job he's done, and even a name that I think needs to be talked about a little bit more, and that's Maurice Hurst. I think Maurice Hurst has been one of the best signings by Andrew Berry. He's had some really good ones this offseason, made some great moves this offseason, but Maurice Hurst might be right up there. I know he's not playing but more than about 30 snaps a game, maybe a little bit less, but just as a rotational pass rusher on the interior, he has been fantastic, and he's done a lot for Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith. But Myles, you can only do, like Baldy said, so much to just contain him. And, Arizona's really good in at run blocking, but they're not as great pass blocking. I think Myles Garrett could have really big day on Sunday. But I do expect Arizona to triple team him a lot.
All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Jim from Rochester. I just noticed that we traded Donovan Peoples-Jones. So what are we going to do? We're going to put Tillman out there and not throw the ball to him? Because you never threw the ball to Donovan Peoples-Jones. I just don't know why the Browns constantly, when a coach isn't doing well, his feet are not held to the fire to do so. This guy's doing a poor job, and to make statements about, I have to limit carries and throwing the ball. Aren't you supposed to win games?
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. I disagree. Again, you don't have Nick Chubb. You don't have Deshaun Watson. I know people are frustrated with the loss. But, again, we've gone over this Donovan Peoples-Jones thing. Donovan Peoples-Jones wasn't re-signing here. He was leaving. That's why they drafted Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. And, like I said, it's unfortunate with DPJ because you saw him progressing every year since he's been here. But I also think what we need to give the Browns credit for is you got the most out of DPJ. I mean, he's a 6th-round pick. Most NFL 6th-round picks normally are not even on the same roster at this point, or some of them aren't even in the league. A good amount of them aren't even in the league anymore by this particular point in their career. So, it's a bummer what happened with DPJ. Cedric Tillman, his role is going to increase. And at the same time, kind of like you said, you don't have Deshaun Watson out there. You have a couple guys in your offense that you need to make a habit of getting the ball to. That's what they did on Sunday. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, David Njoku in the passing game, And it's one of those things, Donovan Peoples-Jones, they just didn't make him a focal point of the offense. And I think the writing was kind of on the wall this year in regards to that. If there was an opportunity to trade him, I felt like at some point during the regular season they were going to do that just because you had Cedric Tillman there waiting. You have they like David Bell still. You have Marquise Goodwin. And even if needed, you have Austin Watkins, Jalen Darden on the practice squad, who I know they like. And you brought in James Prochet this week from Baltimore. So, again, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of just how it is in the NFL sometimes. And hopefully when Watson gets back under center, the ball is going to be spread out a little bit more.
Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dawgs podcast, as well as Network 216 and I, going to step aside, take one more timeout. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dawgs podcast, as well as Network 216. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is James Fowler from Wadsworth, longtime fan. Man, the pretenders and the contenders. The contenders are trading for players to bolster their team at the trade deadline, and the pretenders are the ones that are getting rid of their players. This is not a good move for the Browns. They got rid of a quality player for nothing. Have they given up on the season? Thank you.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Tyler, we've talked this one to death. They're not giving up on the season. People are really upset about that. Let's take a look at this. This is kind of interesting. So this is a tweet from Jack Duffin. It is the percentage of snaps for wide receiver that are up. So DPJ actually had the highest percentage of snaps at wide receiver, 83%, Cooper 78, Moore 78, Goodwin 14, Bell 10, and Cedric Tillman just 8. So a lot of snaps have opened up at wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure. And DPJ, a big reason that he does lead the team in snap percentage at wide receiver is he was a really good run blocker for the Browns. He got called for a couple penalties at various points this season, but he is a good run blocker, and that's a big reason he was on the field the most. Amari and Elijah, I think that number is going to stay around the same for them. Maybe that gets bumped up into the 80s. I think Goodwin, his snap percentage is going to increase, especially with the return of Deshaun Watson here, hopefully either this week or next week. David Bell, I expect him to go up once he's recovered from his knee injury. We don't know how serious that is, but he didn't practice today. And then Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman is probably going to see the biggest increase, of course, just because he hasn't played much throughout the year. But he was the guy that you drafted to replace Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I think out of anyone on this list, I expect Tillman's to go up massively in the next coming weeks. And I can't wait to see what he can do. I mean, again, he did some things in the preseason you like, and I know you don't want to overreact to preseason, but he's got that build you want to play X receiver, which the Browns really need. And I think he's going to end up filling that role about as well as DPJ did.
So Kevin Stefanski was asked just about Cedric Tillman and kind of what he's seen from him.
He does, yeah. And, obviously you guys saw the trade with Donovan, a guy that we all love, having seen him grow up in this building, had some really, really great moments for us. So wishing him the best. But it does open up, an avenue towards playing time for Ced and for some other guys as well. I've seen it in games. I've seen it in practice, preseason games it is. Reason we like the kid when he's coming out. I mean, he's big, physical, ball skills. So he's been working very, very hard. Have not to date been able to get him going, and a lot of that becomes roster, based on who's available, and you can only bring so many to the game. But he's remained very diligent, works hard at it.
And run blocking, again, because he is big, is something he should be able to fill in with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't even be surprised if we see him early on Sunday in this game because of his run blocking ability. And I think that's going to be huge for the Browns because against the Cardinals, one thing that you do want to exploit, they are one of the worst teams in the NFL at defending the run. And I think the Browns are going to be able to exploit that on Sunday. Cedric Tillman's going to play, I think, a good amount of snaps. And I want to see the impact he can make, regardless of Watson's at quarterback or PJ Walker. I do think he's going to make a solid impact for us. I don't expect him to light it up, but especially in the red zone, that bigger body receiver, it's another mismatch that the defense has to prepare for. So I can't wait to see what he does once he gets on the field with the ones.
So what about this one concerns you? What with the Cardinals concerns you?
What concerns me is the Browns taking the Cardinals lightly. The Browns are the way more talented team, and I don't think there's any question about that. When you hear the Cardinals roster, there aren't a lot of players that you really like. Who is that? Like, who is that guy? Who is that guy on the defense? See, with Arizona though, Jonathan Gannon, and this is what you want to see from a rebuilding team. He's got these guys playing hard. I mean, that game against Baltimore, they did not quit. And again, they were at home for that game, but they didn't quit against Baltimore. And that game was close throughout pretty much the entire second half too, until Baltimore ended up pulling away there at the end. But the thing that concerns me is just don't have a letdown game. You go to Baltimore for a huge AFC North match the week after. Don't look ahead. And I think Kevin Stefanski is going to have these guys ready to play. And then if Kyler Murray somehow plays, that has me a little worried because, again, what is there to expect from Kyler Murray? I mean, I expect him to be rusty, but he does present a whole nother level of challenges because he's a mobile quarterback. He's smaller in stature too, which makes, again, he's very shifty too. And I think that's a big thing for this Browns defense. It actually would be a good test with preparing for Lamar Jackson the week after, even though, again, they're not the same exact player, but just that mobile type of quarterback. But the biggest thing, just don't look ahead. That's honestly my biggest worry because the Browns in every category, when you look at it, this should be a game that they win by double digits.
All right, before I let you go, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason one last time.
Hi, this is Rico. I know fans wanted Barry to trade for a quarterback. Personally, I'm not upset about it. There's not that many good quarterbacks in the league. And I know fans just wanted a viable option in case Watson gets hurt again or doesn't regain his form. But I think he will. As much as I love Jacoby, there is no way that Andrew Berry could have gave up a third-round pick for him. But maybe they feel that Watson is close to returning to form. That's going to be my hope. Thank you. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. That was obviously left before he found out that Watson did, in fact, practice. Yeah, the other thing is, I know Brissett played well and the offense was effective last year. That was with Nick Chubb. Not sure you get the same results without Nick Chubb and Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, Dave, I kind of feel that way too. And let's keep in mind that this offense also has evolved more to suit Deshaun Watson's skill set. And it's not a knock on Jacoby Brissett. He was able to make some plays with his feet last year, but that's not who he is. That's not who Jacoby Brissett is. I don't know if this offense would fit him as much as it did last year. And then the compensation too. I mean, if Washington really wanted a 3, because it sounds like the Vikings inquired about Jacoby Brissett as well. And once they found out the price, they went for Josh Dobbs, and they traded basically nothing to get him. So clearly Washington was not really interested in trading Brissett, even though they said he was on the market. And, you know, Andrew Berry's smart for not giving up a third, because then if you give up a third, you're going into this draft without already your first-round pick, your third-round pick, fourth, and then you wouldn't pick again until the 5th round. So, yeah. It makes a lot of sense that Andrew Berry didn't give up a third-round pick or higher just to get a veteran quarterback backup for probably 2 or 3 games, if at the most.
Tyler Johnson, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tyler.
Always my pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
Tyler Johnson, make sure you check him out, Faithful Dogs podcast, as well as Network 216. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Cavaliers. They'll be in New York tonight. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com, and I will talk about it on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
This is the 50, 100, 500 scratch-off from the Ohio Lottery, a much cleaner way of winning. We precision-crafted 3 perfect increments of cash, $50, $100, and $500, and created the only game that pays exclusively in those increments, hence the clever name. 50, 100, 500. Ideal quantities for dining foods, clothing wear, or stereophonics. The simplicity is breathtaking. Play 50, 100, 500 and transform how you feel about winning.
Sports for CLE continues. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Cavs coming off a 109-91 loss last night to the New York Knicks at home. Now they go on the road tonight, play back-to-back against the Knicks. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, Cavs without Garland, Allen, and LeVert lose that game, off to a 1-3 start. How concerning is the start?
I wouldn't say it's too concerning. You know, you look at after Wednesday's game against the Knicks, what do they have? 77 games left still. So, you know, there's going to be times during the season when you win 1 of 4, 1 of 5 games. This just for the Cavs, unfortunately, happens to have been at the start of the season. So in those, you know, you can chalk that up. Frankly, you would think to the injuries, which is, as you just said, Darius Garland, Jared Allen primarily. Then you had Donovan Mitchell miss a game. Then you had Karis LeVert miss a game. You have your backup point guard, Ty Jerome, out with an ankle issue. So, you know, those things need to heal. And as J.B. Bickerstaff has said, frankly, it stinks, but it's better that it's happening now and hopefully not later in the year. So I wouldn't think it's too concerning. Look, you know, the Cavs started 8-1 last year and got beat in the first round of the playoffs. So these first 5-10 games aren't you know, going to determine what happens the rest of the season. Los Angeles Lakers started 2-7 last year and went to the Western Conference Finals. So, you know, ideally you would love to be healthy at this time of year, but 1-3 start would be more concerning if they had all their big guns, particularly Darius Garland, the point guard who sets everything up.
So Isaac Okoro has hit double figures in scoring, 4th straight game last night. Last time he scored 10-plus points, 4 straight games, December 10th through the 15th, 2021. What have you seen from Okoro, and how much have you liked what you have seen from Isaac Okoro?
Yeah, this is the first year that I've really thought he's played really well, living up to his potential. He's just been more aggressive and more assertive, more confident. I think part of that had to do with the fact that they went out and traded for Max Strus, who plays Okoro's position. They re-signed Karis LeVert, who plays Okoro's position. So I think that just is a human nature type of thing where, he may have been thinking, I need to step it up because they're going out and they're getting guys who play my spot. I'm going to lose time, lose minutes. But he's just been playing with a much more confidence, been much more productive. He's become a threat offensively. If you're an opposing defense, you have to pay attention to him. I really like what I've seen from Okoro. Been very, very well-rounded this season in the first 4 games, even in the preseason training camp. He just looks, I don't want to say like a different player, but a much more confident player when it comes to his offensive game. So that's only going to benefit the Cavs when everybody does get healthy.
So through 4, what are some of the things that you've seen that you've liked that you think might be onto something? And then what are some of the things that you've seen that you're kind of going, need to clean that up a little bit?
Yeah, the things I've liked, obviously, you still have Donovan Mitchell, which is you're talking about a player who can pretty much do whatever he wants one-on-one. When you need a basket, he can go out and get it for the most part, unless they're blitzing him, as the Knicks did in the playoffs last year. And then in the second half of Tuesday's game, they get the ball out of his hands and make the other guys beat you. But even then, Mitchell's still able to score. So, I mean, that's a big plus. I thought the first game in Brooklyn, even without Allen, we got a good taste of who the Cavs can be. And that's a team with, a lot of weapons. I think it's hurting Max Strus and the newcomers without having your starting point guard out there, a point guard in Darius Garland who can score 20 points a game. So, I think that hurts set up the other guys, and they're not getting the shots that they want in comfortable positions. So, but as far as the strengths, I think the resiliency, even in the losses, has been there. They're really, there's no quit, there's no discord. Far from it. They've been united. They just don't have the pieces right now, with everybody hurt to compete. So the negatives are, we've got to see more from Evan Mobley getting more touches and just being more aggressive offensively for the most part on a consistent basis. You can like what he does on the boards and what he does defensively, but you just got to get more from him offensively.
So this is from the Bleacher Report. Best landing spots for top available NBA free agents. For John Wall, they say the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland can use another ball-handling guard in the backcourt to provide some injury assurance while everyone heals up and Ricky Rubio hopefully makes a return. Wall can accept a role as a pass-first guard off the bench, an occasional spot starter. The Cavs could use his services. Sam, I am not seeing that in the future for John Wall.
I would agree with you. I just don't think, look, the Cavs are big still on Ty Jerome, who's playing the backup to Darius Garland when he's healthy. Right now, the Cavs just seem so desperate because both the starter in Garland and the backup in Ty Jerome are out. So it makes it seem like they really need to go get somebody. Obviously, the Ricky Rubio situation being what it is, it's still a mystery if and when he returns. So I think the Cavs will be fine with Garland and Jerome. Now, granted, we've seen what happens when one gets injured. We're seeing what happens when both get injured. So, yeah, maybe you could use a third stringer, though. At this point right now, I think that you have to like what you see from Craig Porter Jr., the two-way rookie who went undrafted out of Wichita State, had a very nice game against New York on Tuesday night. So I don't think that they need to go out and get a veteran. I always liked John Wall, big fan, but I just don't think he'd be somebody who would fit because obviously older player, hasn't played in a while, hasn't been on a team in a while. Just probably not the answer or solution that they need. Their solution they just need to get healthy. They don't need to add any pieces at this point, I don't think.
All right, before I let you go, so Friday the Cavs play Indiana, the Pacers, on the road. It's the first game of the new in-season tournament. What are your thoughts on that? And how is it being received, I guess?
My thoughts are I don't understand what the point is other than you're trying to drum up some interest if you're Adam Silver, NBA commissioner, for these regular season games, which can be tough to do in November. I mean, you've got the NFL getting into the nitty-gritty of the season. It's the same thing with college football. You got college basketball starting soon. The NBA is kind of a distant fourth in November. So here you're trying to create extra competition, I guess, to try to make fans, more interested in the NBA at a time that's very slow for it in the regular season. So I don't know that it'll work. Dave, I'm looking at this as like a blockbuster movie that's going to flop, go straight to DVD. I just don't think that this idea is worth the hassle. I don't think, as far as how it's being received, I don't think anybody cares or notices. And maybe I'll be wrong. Who knows? I hope I'm wrong for the sake of the NBA, but I don't foresee this drumming up a lot of interest. That said, I'm sure I'll cover it and write about it the same way the NBA would like me to, and hype it up and make it fun. So who knows? Maybe it'll work. I just don't foresee it making any bit of a difference other than confusing fans.
Yeah, so all of the games except the finals count in the regular season. So it seems like European Soccer League stuff that I just don't think an American sport is going to necessarily buy. But again, I'm an old guy. I could be wrong.
it's European soccer stuff is best left for Europe. Is how I would say it.
I'm with you. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff with the NBA coverage as well as the Cavs in particular. Well, that'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.